Meanwhile, the FCC had stopped taking evidence, and Larry Bernstein was writing up his report. He finished it in December 1980.
We found scores, perhaps hundreds of false statements under oath by Jim Bakker. We found evidence of people going into the PTL counting room and scooping money out. Evidence that Reverend Bakker and others had enriched themselves personally over or with money solicited for various religious purposes.
Frontline has studied Bernstein's report. It is nothing if not thorough. Every statement of fact is backed up by a reference to a line in the transcripts. Voluminous footnotes detail the alleged misstatements and inconsistencies in Bakker's testimony, evidence of possible perjury on his part. At the end of 1980, political events took a significant turn. The newly elected president, Ronald Reagan, had courted fundamentalists generally and religious broadcasters in particular.
Thank you all very much, and thank you, Brent Gustafson. Ladies and gentlemen, when I look out at your warm and caring faces, I get a very special feeling, like being born again.
The new administration changed the political complexion of Washington, and a new man was brought in to head up the FCC. One of his first symbolic gestures was to start videotaping the commission's meetings. A libertarian conservative, an avid deregulator, and a passionate believer in First Amendment rights, Mark Fowler felt that the FCC had been biased against religious broadcasters.
I do think that there was a feeling on the part of some religious broadcasters that for some period of time there was a discriminatory attitude against religious broadcasters, that they were somehow treated more harshly, that they weren't as legitimate as regular broadcasters.
What I noticed with regard to PTL and with the report was that for a long time nothing happened. The report was sent up to the highest authorities at the FCC, where it languished for quite a while. Eventually, I was contacted by one of the chairman's assistants and asked to take things out of the report.
This is the first I've heard of that. I would say two things. One, it's false, and two, you should ask Mr. Sharp.
Fowler's general counselor at the FCC, Steve Sharp, did receive a copy of Bernstein's report.
The report, I mean, I would have to look at, see a copy of the final report to be sure, but I don't believe there were any changes made in the report.
The only thing he would be saying, I think, would be that we went back and took the report and ordered him to then, in effect, rewrite it or re-edit it. And that's even more scurrilous and false.
He was never told to rewrite it or re-edit it?
Not by me, nor through any other intermediary. That's just not my style.
It is absolutely a fact that through his staff, the chairman of the FCC made it clear that my report had to be watered down.
I recall raising a number of questions with the report, because I was not pleased with the way it was written.
But the draft copy of Bernstein's report shows that only 9 passages were rewritten or modified. Far more significantly, 134 sections were deleted. Bernstein says that what was being lost was content. For example, 76 footnotes detailing numerous examples of Bakker's alleged perjury were cut. According to Bernstein, Sharp wanted his report watered down and took the guts out of it.
As far as guts are concerned, it's nonsense. As far as watering, as I said, I think that some of the editorial comments in there were inappropriate. They were not supported by evidence, and they justly deserve to be edited out.
But these edits seem to have weakened the report even further. For example, when the whole of paragraph 72 was excised, language was lost that explained how PTL had done nothing to supply Dr. Cho with equipment he'd been promised for 8 months. Without this kind of signposting, only someone very familiar with the investigation could follow the thrust of the report. there are 33 deletions like this.
We always wanted to have the facts come out. We might disagree with what we should do with those facts, but that is just simply false to say that I ordered Steve Sharp and then he ordered the gentleman to go ahead and change or water down the report in any way.
Ann Jones, an FCC commissioner at the time, was unaware that the report had been edited.
No, I've heard that since. I had not heard that beforehand. That is one of the very unfortunate, indeed tragic things that I think happened at the FCC.
This videotape shows the 7 commissioners on December 8, 1982, the day they discussed Bernstein's report. The FCC will not release the videotape of the decisive closed session that took place later that same day. 4 of the 7 commissioners were expected to put Bakker through a full public hearing and probably take away his broadcasting license. Chairman Fowler preferred to let PTL sell off its TV station in Ohio and so avoid the time and cost of a full inquiry. He was backed by Sharp, a commissioner by now, and by James Quello. But then, apparently, a commissioner changed sides.
The commissioner who changed her vote was Commissioner Mimi Dawson. And what I remember almost as vividly as anything else was that she said nothing during the entire debate. She sat there and smiled.
Ms. Dawson has declined an interview with Frontline.
And I remember Chairman Fowler and Commissioner Sharp rather blithely defending the propriety and the rectitude of what they were doing.
You did get a sense of something just being sort of ramrodded through, which I think raises legitimate questions, at least, about why.
I remember Commissioner Rivera pounding the table in his outrage.
At the end of a stormy session, Henry Rivera wrote Chairman Fowler a stinging dissent. In it, he and Commissioner Fogarty accused him of bowing to political pressure.
I would hate to think that political pressure or any other kind of pressure changed anyone's mind or influenced them to vote in a way that was contrary to commission policy. But the tone of the dissent of 2 of my fellow commissioners clearly implied that they felt that something untoward had taken place, that somehow the commission had been co-opted in its decision-making.
That case was decided on its merits. There were no discussions about what does this do to people on the religious right, so-called, who might support the president. Again, the case admittedly was a close case, and I understand how Larry and others would feel that the commission made the wrong decision.
Larry Bernstein was so disillusioned by a decision he thought let Bakker off the hook that he quit government service.
After the FCC let him go, in the face of a mountain of apparent misconduct, he must have felt that he could do anything and God himself wouldn't stop him.
They're grading out down here right now, and this whole hillside has to come down to make way for this roadbed. This will be the entryway to the great auditorium.
Bakker was free to raise over $100 million to build Heritage USA. More than $10 million would find its way into the Bakkers' pockets. Though the IRS and Justice Department had seen the FCC report, they also took no action.
When you give your $1,000 gift, you'll receive a special membership card.
He wanted the finest things. He may have had difficulty times identifying what they were, but he wanted the best. And I went out and took a tour of Heritage with Jim as my guide. We went to the hotel, which was then under construction, and he was very proud of a couple of things. And we went into the bathroom, and he said, "You see those showers? What's different about them?" I couldn't figure out, and I said, I don't know, Jim. He said, "No grout. They have no grout." He said, "I've hated grout. It grows mold in between the little tiles, and you have to scrub it off with a toothbrush. And I have vowed that we are not going to have a hotel at Heritage USA that has a grout problem."
but we're kind of taking you into our secret hideaway.
Through the years, there certainly was a change that came in Jim and Tammy. As the affluence increased, they were buying bigger and better houses.
Not very many people get a chance to show you their bedrooms. But you never know what you're going to see at PTL.
The ministry was taking care of fixing them up.
Tammy's out in the kitchen now.
Lunch is almost ready, Jim.
As youngsters, they grew up with practically nothing. As they began to live a more affluent lifestyle, it just escalated.
All right, yo, come on, get in the car here. Okay. And I'll drive.
Jim is a lover of good cars. Nothing wrong with that, except that it became exorbitant, and that there were many cars, there were very costly cars. Right, there seemed to be no limit as to how much could be spent on this type of thing.
I don't think there's any more beautiful place than the desert. Tammy, are you ready to go?
Yes.
We're ready to roll. Come on in.
Another time we were going through his wardrobe in his dressing room. And he opened up his closets, and there were racks of suits, 40, 50 silk shirts, lots of different colors, gold fixtures. When he was asked about it, he said, God does not like junk.
God doesn't want us to turn back now. We've come too far by faith. $24 million has already been paid out there for the greatest Christian center, retreat center, conference center. Never anything like it ever been built in history. Now, what do? Well, when in doubt, build something more.
From 1980, you could see a change in the programming. You could see it going away to more fundraising and less ministry. Of course, we knew that it had to be that way because we needed money. The bigger you get, the more money it takes to run.
Well, 30,000 more lifetime members will bring in $30 million.
I heard Jim himself say it. I hope I hadn't created a monster.
The $9 million we need, let's just round it out because my math is not real good. We'll just round it $10 million to finish the grand. We've come this far by faith. Why can't we finish it and see a miracle in 30 days? Oh, hallelujah!
He was devoting so much time to building here at Heritage USA that Tammy made the statement to Susan and me one day that Heritage USA has become Jim's mistress. She even made the statement, I wish it were another woman. She said I could compete with that.
Of course, there had been another woman, and her name was Jessica Hahn. Bakker might have survived the sex scandal, but he had also used church funds to try to buy her silence.
Tammy and I are so very glad that we've been granted this opportunity.
The Bakkers had no choice but to go on TV and say farewell to their followers.
Say hello.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
The Reverend Jerry Falwell came to the rescue. Bakker had asked him to act as a caretaker until the scandal blew itself out. But before long, Falwell was telling the press he would not hand the ministry back because the sex scandal and the hush money were only the tip of the iceberg.
Our board unanimously cut off all the hush money. I could not, in good conscience, could not allow one penny of the partners' contributions to this ministry continue to go to cover up something an individual did, something the ministry had nothing to do with. I did talk with her.
I was probably 2 or 3 weeks into the management of PTL when many, many different stories began to surface. First of all, that the Jessica Hahn story that he had told me was not true. Further, that there were other moral problems, serious ones, alleged, both heterosexual and homosexual. And beyond these alleged improprieties, we began to find that financially, what the world now knows had happened, that Reverend Bakker had used the ministry for personal profiting. And having heard so very much, our board came to the conclusion unanimously that Reverend Bakker must not come back here.